All right, everybody. I've got another very special guest for y'all. Everybody, please welcome to the show, T.S. Luther. Welcome, T.S.
Hi, my name's TS and I write comics. Thanks for having me. I'm legally obligated to introduce myself like that.
Yeah, that's the rules, and we don't make the rules.
No.
So, man, we're talking before the recording, and I can tell that you're a huge comics fan. So I'm excited to hear what you have to say about this. But new to the show, so I want to get your origin story, kind of where you came up in comics, your love for comics, all that kind of stuff as a basis for where we can start talking.
Sure, man. Well, it all started with Archie comics and the death of Superman. Because I grew up in the middle of the woods, Michigan. I had nothing. And I think my parents were really religious. They're not now. But on Easter, I think to teach me about the resurrection and all that stuff, they got me the death and return of Superman. Because, he died, came back. And it did not turn me into, like a real religious guy. But it did get me into comic books. And it made me love mullets, black costumes, giant guns for some reason. Death of Superman's weird. But I've been obsessed with comic books ever since. And I used to write about car parts for automotive companies. And COVID came around, and I couldn't do it anymore. I got tired of it, so I wrote a little anthology. Nobody read it, nobody bought it, but I was hooked. And for the first time, I wanted to do something with my career, so I made an indie comic called Tokyo Fire. And I pitched it to every publisher possible, and nobody wanted it because no one had ever heard of me before. So I took it to Zoop, which is an awesome platform if you want to get started for crowdfunding. People really responded to it there, and really, really responded to me on TikTok. And I found a whole community of indie comic book publishers and fans, and that's where everything started. I started pitching comic books there. I started working with some smaller publishers and other indie people, and then finally I pitched a book called The Digger with my buddy Sam Goodlin to Invader Comics, and that brings us up to date. There was also lots of different side quests on there. Did a lot of dancing videos. If you want to see me dancing, you can find me on TikTok. They're really awesome. That's really what I'm known for. But sometimes I write comic books.
What was the book you did for Zoop?
Tokyo Fire was it was like a cyberpunk mismatch, very Studio Trigger, fun, light, cyberpunk kids who living on the street who see something they shouldn't have seen, and then they steal a hover bike and they get roped into a massive revolution with superpowered cops, superpowered criminals, and a madman that wants to burn the entire city down. And it's a lot of fun, and it actually got picked up by my buddy's publisher, Professional Entropy, and we're putting out I think 4 issues in 2026, and that's going to be in shops and stuff. So we're working on getting distribution right now. So it's finally coming back around, but it really was just a one-shot type thing that got me a bunch of other writing gigs.
I'm always interested in the whole Zoop thing because it's kind of a blind spot for me. I check them once in a while, but I don't know. They seem to have made a shift from what their initial idea was. And how does, when you're doing that, like I know with crowdfunding, a lot of people say you're trying to fund the printing so that you can get this big print run and then, go to cons and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
How does that work on the Zoop end? Or is your goal different than what it would be for Kickstarter because they're printing it and sending it out?
So maybe for some people, because originally I had heard about Zoop. I was listening to the Off Panel podcast, which I love. I learned a lot about the industry through there. And I was listening to them, and he had an ad for Zoop. And so I went and checked it out. And originally they were like the one-stop shop. If you get funded through here, we print it, we ship it, we fulfill. You just have to send us the book. And when I actually got there, that's like they only offered that for people that had a little bit higher levels of funding and when they were first starting out. And they offered it, but they really preferred if you could do your own thing. So it was really just Kickstarter, but just for comic books at the time. So it was basically the same thing. However, what they did do was shepherd me through the experience. They explained what I could expect to get as a first-time publisher through there, what I could find when it comes to funding, what kind of stuff I needed to offer to the different backers to get it funded, and all that stuff. So it was really self-explanatory, and they walked you through it, and I appreciated that level of it. But they were still pretty new. Sorry, my dog's whining at me. But they were still pretty new to everything there, and so was I. I recommend it to people if they're just starting out. Like if they're just trying to get started in crowdfunding and they don't know how to navigate Kickstarter. There's a lot of hardcore fans over there, and it's grown now. But for the most part, it was the same as what you would do with Kickstarter. I got funded over there, then I had to go find a printer and learn that process. The one thing that I would say it does is it ingrains you into an ecosystem that's just there for comic books. The people who find Zoop know about Zoop, know about comic books. Like, they're not there for other stuff. But it's, at least for me, it was the exact same process as what I do for Kickstarter.
Yeah, it's always interesting to me because the dirty little secret about crowdfunding is that you're not profitable. You're not funding.
No, and that's the thing. Like, I think we made $3-ish grand off that. And for complete transparency, so Sky Hawkins, my co-creator on Tokyo Fire, I pay her up front for the books that she draws for me. And then we split the profit, anything after that kind of thing. And it made $3,000. That's basically what Sky got paid. I paid her to be able to take some time off to draw the entire first issue. That was it. You still had to pay for printing, you had to pay for advertising, you had to pay for shipping. I think Tokyo Fire issue number 1 cost me more than any other book ever. Like $7,000 altogether. But it does what Kickstarter's supposed to do. It kickstarted me, right? It got me into making comic books. It got me to be able to afford to not go completely broke by getting the book printed and everything. But crowdfunding really, if you can, you'll break even. There are some people who are really, really good at it, who know how to game the system just perfectly and make all the money that they need to keep the books going and not just make the next one, but actually be profitable. I'm not that guy. Most of my books pay for themselves to make the next one if I'm lucky. A lot of what I use it for is to springboard and get me in front of more publishers, get me in front of more indie people so I can get paid to write more comics. Because I don't mind playing with other people's toys. I'm not in this to make a ton of money anyways, because it's comic books. There's not a ton of money unless you're selling a show to AMC or something, you know? Like, that's not really how it works. So I use it to springboard into other books. Some people know how to make it. That's usually by putting out 100 variant covers, selling just a lot of merch, and doing a Kickstarter like every month. And I can't do that.
Yeah, and that's why Zoop is always so interesting to me, because I know the big... what a lot of people do is use it to get the print run so that they can go to cons and make the book profitable like a year down the line.
Yeah, it's all like a waiting game, right? It's like that even if you go to a publisher. Like,
yeah,
I have a book going out at Invader right now. It's going to be in stores in January. But the book's been done for almost 2 years now. Like, me and Sam made the Digger issue number 1 years ago. Went around pitching it, finally got the Invader deal. They had to wait a year for when they have an opening in their publishing spot. By then, we already have issues 2 and 3 done. But like, this is all up front. There's no advance. That, you know, Invader doesn't have money to pay us for it. Me and Sam are doing this out of like hope and a prayer that it gets us more jobs and that it sells well enough. If it sells more than what it costs to get it printed, then maybe we'll see a check. But it won't be for another year because Invader Comics has to hold on to that because of buybacks from comic book shops. You know, if there's any returns, they have to pay them back. And they have to pay for printing. So there's no money. And if there is money, it's a really long wait for money in comic books. There's so much patience involved. I could not have done this in my 20s when I, played Magic the Gathering and needed a new pack of cards every day. Like, there's no way I could have handled this kind of patience. I needed the ability of being a father to teach me to be calm and just wait. The Zen meditation of it all.
I think of a post from a few years ago that a friend of the show, Jonathan Hedrick, did. Where he's like, to all the crowdfunding people out there who are like mad that their book isn't profitable or anything. He's like, I got this published through, I'm not going to name the publisher.
Right.
It's not a disparaging post, but through so-and-so. And I've gotten 2 royalty checks. It was like $72 and like $15. He goes, the book cost $4,000 to make.
Right. And that's so much of it. And I think that's why I've had a better time in indie comics than a lot of people have, and why I'm so excited to keep growing either in indie comics or to get more publishing gigs. Because for me, it's all XP. It's all about just getting as many credits as possible and making awesome comic books with my friends. And those are the people that I've ended up working with. Like, me and Sam, like I said, we don't make any money off the Digger right now, and we might one day. But really, it was an opportunity for us to work with Invader Comics, who we really wanted to work with. and get into that publisher, get into comic book shops and learn a little bit more about distribution and see if we can, level up through doing this process. It's fine that there's no money in there. I don't know if there ever will be money for me in comic books, but every gig that I get gets me closer to at least lasting in comic books, because that's my dream. My dream isn't to make $1 million. My dream is to be able to make comic books forever. So maybe this will help me get towards that.
Yeah, it's funny with comic creators, especially writers, where it's like I talk to so many of them and they go like, yeah, I buy less and less comics because you don't have the time to read them, or there's the money and all these different reasons. But then you're so like, yeah, my comic buying habit's gone down, but like I'm making 3 comics a year and everything, and I do the math. I'm like, dude, you're spending more money on comics than you were before.
1,000%. It's so easy to do, and like it is hard because like you do have less time, and I think some people get disillusioned with it too. Like they lose interest a little bit in comic books because they're writing so many of them. For me, it's like that old Stephen King adage, right? Like, you can't have output without having input. I still read everything I can get my hands on because it's my job. It's my homework. Plus, I love it. Like, comic books are everything to me when it comes to hobbies, so that's all I ever want to do. I was reading Bird King Volume 2, waiting for you to log on. I'm just, like, sitting there with my camera off going, well, while I can, let's get a few more pages in. But because it's important. It makes me a better writer. It makes me a little bit more aware of what's going on in the industry. And also, it's the coolest thing ever. Why would you write comic books if you don't love reading comic books more than other stuff,
With your comic reading, like, do you find... Because I found through my love of comics that I became more open to different genres and types of storytelling and everything that, TV, film, those things didn't really do for me as much. Like, when I was more into that stuff, I was really into this type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Do you find that with your reading too, or what kind of stuff are you enjoying right now? I guess is what I'm asking.
I mean, I still love everything. Any medium that can tell a story, I want to check it out. I used to be be an actor in like audio dramas and stuff in high school, so like I've fallen back down that rabbit hole. I listen to a lot of podcasts, but I love TV, I love film, but comics will always be the top version of any type of storytelling for me. Partly just because it was one of the first that I fell in love with, but also because you can do so much more in comics that you can't pull off in TV or film because it involves so much more money. Whatever an artist can imagine and pull off in the comic book, that you can have that story, and it can be told in a way that has far fewer gatekeepers and hands in the cookie jar because there's less money involved. So you get so much more experimental storytelling and so many ideas that are just purely from the brain instead of from a committee in comic books that you can't get otherwhere. I still love film. I watched 4 movies yesterday. Me and my wife had a whole horror movie marathon this weekend, and I love TV. But comic books will always be my number one because they can do so much more than you can pull off anywhere else.
And are you the type of guy that is like strictly indie? Do you like Marvel DC stuff still? I know you said Death of Superman earlier, but you still kind of reading that stuff?
I mean, absolutely. I read everything. I will always love, capes and tights. I read Marvel. I read DC. I really fell in love with Image Comics in the 2000s with Invincible. Kirkman will always be a hero of mine. And Walking Dead got me into horror, period, let alone horror comics. But I love everything. Mad Cave, Vault, indie stuff, Invader comics, obviously. The stuff that you won't see from any publisher. My buddy Mr. Fish Comics is one of my favorite. He only sells his comic books at cons and on Kickstarter. You'll never find it in a shop because that's too much for him. He draws too many books to, have time to fill out a distribution list for a catalog or something. But I love all comic books, and even ones that aren't good. And that, I think that people kind of sleep on stuff where they're like, well, it's not the best writer I've ever heard of. It's not Jonathan Hickman or something, so why would I read it? But there's always something to learn from a comic book. There's always something fun in there. Maybe there's something that I learned not to do by reading this comic book that isn't so good. So I try to read everything, from Marvel, DC, and everything in between.
Dude, if I gotta get this off my chest too, because I find people outside of the comics community, like we love superheroes. Like we're all about, that's what we grew up on. That's to this day. Like, dude, as soon as we're done with this, I'm gonna go read One World Under Doom. Like,
heck yeah, I love that shit. Yeah.
But to me, it's like that's the layer on top. And I personally just read so much different shit at this point that like I no longer say I don't like this genre or I'm not a fan of this, because the next book in line will be a horror book, and then I just got done reading. I know it's technically manga, but it's all comics, people.
It's all comics.
I just got done reading Vinland Saga.
Yeah, Vinland Saga's rad. I read that in Berserk last month.
Fucking awesome, and I don't give two shits about Vikings. Like, do not care, man. One of the best comics I've read in a long time. Like, I want more people to get in just to see, like, dude, there's more than just flights and tights. Like, it's such a great.
There's so much stuff, and I see it a lot for people, even like a lot of the influencers, like being on TikTok, being the place where like I grew, talk to a lot of people on there, and they're always so surprised when I'll reference a comic book that's pretty big, right? It's something big from Image, and they're like, oh, I've never heard of it, and I'm like, what do you mean? You're one of the biggest comic book influencers on the app. How have you never heard of this? They're like, oh, I read Marvel and DC. That's it. And that's always wild to me, but the thing is you can. Marvel puts out 50 books every month, you know? Like, you could just read that forever. It reminds me of, like, when Netflix was a thing where it's like, you could just have Netflix. Netflix puts out enough content to just have Netflix. You're sleeping on everything that Hulu's doing, but you can just have Netflix. That's completely fine, which is crazy when you love everything. And I try to open up people's minds. It's like, I get if you're not into reading this indie book that's only been sold at one Comic-Con in New York State, but it's not New York Comic Con. It's like the upstate one that only 4 people went to, and this guy just, he does ashcan copies. I get if you're nervous about that one, but there's such a wide breadth of publishers out there that are publishing awesome stuff. The fact that Mad Cave is getting its due right now with Speed Racer, which is one of the best books out there right now, I love to see it. Like, people are starting to finally come out of that bubble a little bit more. Now that Marvel is slowing down a little bit with the movies, I think that bubble has burst a little bit for people to go, well, what else is there? What else can I check out? DC's about to usurp it again, and people will only be reading Superman. But for now, maybe we'll be able to sneak in some Image comics or something.
Hey, Superman's really good right now.
Superman's great right now, and World's Finest will forever be my favorite book, like, ever. I think so. I'm loving all of the stuff that they're putting out, but I just wish that people would not stop reading Marvel and DC, but also read Vault and Mad Cave, and if I could, Black Mask really got me into trying to pitch to other publishers. They never published me, but that's where I found my love of, I'm going to pitch to everybody, and I wish more people would check that out. Like 4 kids walk into a bank or something.
So, you've mentioned TikTok a few times. What kind of content are you doing on TikTok?
I mean, I give a lot of tips. There's a lot of people who, they just want to know how to make comic books. A lot of them want to know how to work for Marvel and DC, and I'm always upfront. I'm like, I have no idea how to do that. If they figure it out, come and tell me, because I haven't cracked that code. But they just don't even know where to start. So many people think they have the idea, and they're like, oh, the idea, that's the hardest part, right? So I have this really cool idea for this Superman comic book. And I try to be there to hold their hand and tell them, like, that's not at all the most important part. In fact, that's the easiest part, and you'll come to find out. Here's how you do it. So I just walk them through what I've done in indie comics, how to find an artist, how to write a comic book script, how to take that script and that artist, that team that you put together, and find a place to crowdfund it, find a place to maybe publish it. How do you get it to fruition? And every once in a while I give more direct writing tips based on what people ask for, or a dance video here and there. I show a lot of pictures of my cats who just like to terrorize me while I read comic books on the toilet. Like, anything that can be fun. I originally got on there to pimp my wares, to sell my comic books. And what I found was a lot of people who were just so desperate for any information, because it's so opaque. There's not a lot of information out there on how to make it in comics. And so I'm up front and I'm like, well, I don't know if I've ever made it, and I don't think I'll ever break into mainstream, but here's how you can survive in indie comics. Here's how you can make a book that at least you're proud of. So I give a lot of tips along those lines. And then as my books got a little bit more popular, I just talk about them a lot because people are interested in what's coming out next, which is a thing that I'll never be comfortable with. The fact that I have fans, there's like 7 of them, but the fact that there's a few of them that are interested in what I'm doing will always be wild to me. But I try to tell them what I got going on and fill them in.
I got like 8 or 9, so
man,
not to brag or anything.
Listen, tell them about T.S. Luther, man. I got those dance videos over there. Like, you want to see some cat videos? Go follow me.
No, it's something I've talked to like a bunch of creators about over the years, where they're like, I get on these things and then just nobody responds. I'm like, yeah, because you're just advertising all the time, dude.
Right?
Like, you gotta make content.
You can't advertise all the time, and even if you are going to advertise, you also have to give them something to stick around for, because people don't care, and people don't want to hear that. People don't want to hear, I don't care. They don't want to hear that they don't have a million fans and that people don't give a crap about their indie book.
Yeah.
But it's true. Like, and that's not a mean thing. That's not a hurtful thing. They've never heard of you before. You have to make them care.
Yeah. And I think you have to pick your lane. Like if you like you found your lane on TikTok.
Exactly.
I know so many people, like, if you're a writer, dude, Substack's your lane. Create content on there.
2%.
I know.
Put out a newsletter, you know?
Yeah, Timothy Fling, friend of the show, puts out a newsletter where he talks about fucking UFOs and Bigfoot. And
but
then
it
he
gets
makes
people
sci-fi
interested.
comics.
Yeah, man. Like, you got to make them a fan of you to a certain extent, which I always hate. I never want to be an influencer. That's not what I'm there for. But if people enjoy you, then they might enjoy your comics. There's the 10% rule, right? If people show up, you know, if 100 people show up, 10% of them might want to hear about the thing that you're selling, and 10% of them might buy it. So, like, out of 100 people that view it, maybe I get one person who's willing to maybe give me $1. But that's what you have to do. That's the grind that you're asking for. If you want to be a comic book creator, Marvel's not going to hand you your first gig. That's not how it's going to work. So you got to do anything that you can to get people's attention. And that means getting on TikTok and telling them writing tips that seem obvious to you because you've written 100 comic books, but it's not obvious to them. And maybe they just want to tell you about their Power Ranger pitch that they want to make, even though you don't work for Boom Studios and it is already a season of Power Rangers. That's the one I get the most. People pitch me so many Power Ranger stories, you'd think that I already write for Boom. I don't know why.
And so let me ask, you did the Zoop campaign. Have you done another crowdfunder since then?
Yeah, I did a couple. So I did Tokyo Fire for Zoop, and then I during like the gap there, I was doing a lot of other indie comics for friends of mine. Like, hey, can I write this? Can I write a backup? Can I play with your toys? And then I launched a series called Hellion and Bash, which was this superhero story. It was one of the earliest stories I had ever written, and I had did it on Kickstarter. And immediately, a buddy of mine really liked it, saw that I had done another successful Kickstarter, you know, crowdfunding thing, and said, hey, can we publish it? I want to start a publisher. That's Professional Entropy. He gave me a stake in the company for my licenses. And then we did a second Kickstarter right after that for issue 2. So I've done 2 or 3 of my own. I've assisted on like 20 or so other people's Kickstarters, either that I've written for or edited or just helped them make a Kickstarter because most people don't know how to edit a video. So I do that for a lot of people. So I've been a part of a lot of Kickstarters. I myself have only done 2 or 3. And I don't love it. I don't love the process of it. I don't really enjoy the begging for people to check it out. But you have to, right? And there's no shame in it. This is no judgment at all. It's just not a thing that I'm great at. I just want to write comics. I want to write my silly stories and do that at all. But that's not all you get to do. So I've done 2 or 3. I'll probably do more in the future. I think Tokyo Fire is going to do a campaign for each issue next year. And I'm not sure where Invader Comics is landing now that they're doing so much better in the Lunar catalog. I don't know if they're going to continue doing Kickstarters. If they do Zoop campaigns as well, then I'll probably be a part of those for the Digger, but we'll see.
So I guess that kind of answers my next question, which is you're going kind of the publishing route, trying to get with publishers and pitching to them and everything. I'm guessing that comes from your answer there, where you just don't like Kickstarter. I mean, don't like doing the process of a Kickstarter. I should
right.
say.
It is a lot more work. It's a lot of the not fun part, which is always in comics. Like most of my job is emailing people. That's what it becomes. I wrote the comics a long time ago, and like that takes me about a week. Everything else that I do day to day is just emailing people for a million different reasons. But like, and I don't hate Kickstarter. I do want to work with more publishers, even if that means I still have to do Kickstarters. I'm completely fine with that. But I've always tried to do the Kirkman manifesto of it all, like work in indie comics until someone at a publisher gives me a chance, play with their toys as long as possible until I can get back to creator-owned stuff. That's my goal in comic books. So while I enjoy doing the Kickstarter stuff, to me, there's a little bit of greed where it's not enough. That's not the end-all, be-all for me. It's putting out a comic book. That's only a piece of the work. My dream is not fulfilled. I need to go back to work. And so I'm on more of the pitching to publishers grind. The life cycle of a T.S. Luthor comic book is I find an artist who's dumb enough to work for me, willing to give me a shot because like they don't know better, that I don't know what I'm doing, and we usually become best friends, which is how I get everyone to work with me. Then we make a book, we pitch it to anyone who will listen, they all say no. Then we take it to a crowdfunding platform, it doesn't get funded, and then it goes to Webtoon. That's the life cycle of my books. And luckily, nothing's ever failed all the way down to that point. But that's what I do for all of my books from now on. I've started to get to a point where people say yes at publishers, or at least are willing to open up the email, because before it's like they're like ignoring it. They've never heard of me, so they don't care. They started to actually open them up in the slush pile. They're not always saying yes, but they're opening them. And so because I've had more luck doing that, I've had more artists who are willing to work with me up front to do a book basically in the background of something, hoping we'll find a publisher for it. So that's what I try to do, because I do want to work for Marvel and DC and Image and Vault and everything in between. So I try to be on that lane. I don't want to stay in indie comics, not because I don't love indie comics, but because I want to do this forever. And I've seen the longevity that happens if you're able to survive the grind and go work for Marvel or DC. So that's where I want to go. Plus, how cool would it be if I got to write Dog Welder one day? They'll never let me draw or write Batman, but maybe I could get a small Dog Welder backup in some Joker annual in 2030 or something.
You said something important there that I want to really put out there to everybody. It was you end up meeting these people and become like best friends with them. Here's the dirty little secret about any job. Anything you do, it can't, not just comics, whether it's working at the fucking local 7-Eleven or working for some corporation. People want to work with people they like, everybody.
Yeah. Oh,
and
man.
they want to work with people that are nice and have a good attitude. And 99% of what you do in your professional career is that right there. Just be a decent, nice, fun to be around person. You don't have to be the best at your job. If you do that, you will get ahead. I promise you.
Listen, and I would say that now, after doing hundreds of comic books, I'm okay at it. But most of it is that I'm kind to people. I'm nice. I'm a fan of everybody that I try to work with. Like, I don't reach out to you if I don't love your artwork, if I don't really want to see it come to fruition in a different way. Because most of the artists I work with are at a similar level as me. I don't work with a ton of people who have done stuff with Marvel and DC. I'm working with a lot of people who are also attempting to break into comic books. And so, like, I hunt down these people who I see take it as seriously as I do, who are doing the grind, who are putting in all of that work, and then I pitch them stuff. And I don't pitch them my dream comic. I don't come to them with a script already done going, hey, listen, I wrote the script, I want you to do it exactly my way, bring my dream to fruition. I say, hey, what do you want to draw? And then I write a comic book for them. And that's how you become friends, that's how you become fans of each other, and that's how you make an awesome book that is our dream project. And that works 99% of the time. And every time I've done it, it's found a home somewhere, it's been one of the coolest things I've ever created, and publishers respond to stuff like that. Fans respond to stuff like that. Teammates respond to stuff like that. If you're looking to bring your dream to fruition and have an artist just bring all of your ideas to life, you're going to have a harder time because they don't need you. The writers are the least worthy commodity in indie comics. Everybody can write a comic book. Nobody needs it. Most of the people who are going to succeed are cartoonists anyway, and they don't need a writer. So if you want to break in as a writer in any level of comic books, you got to write something that artist wants to work on. That's the secret, I guess.
How have you found in the indie space? Because I see this a lot in the mainstream space where, like, I'm zoning on anybody's name. Jonathan Hickman can call up whoever he wants and be like, dude, you want to work on this book? Like, I have a broad idea, but we can work together. What do you want to draw? And all the things you were just saying. But in indie, it seems more transactional in the collaboration, where you see less of, I called this person up and said, we should work together. What do we want to do together? And more of like, I will pay you to draw this.
Right. And like both happen. And like even once like I become friends with people, there's still lots of artists that I pay up front because they're better than me, right? They're getting more work. They're a commodity in a way. Again, as a writer, I am not in indie comics. As I've had more successes and put out more projects, that's changed. More people are aware of me. More people have seen my stuff. I have books to send them as samples going, hey, listen, I do know what I'm doing. So that makes it a little bit more open and people are willing to work with me in that way. But for a long time, it was knocking on doors. It was just cold emailing people going, hey, I love what you do. I love your line work on this comic book. I'm a writer. I'm trying to break into comic books. Would you take a chance with me? It doesn't matter if you want to partner on something and we split it 50-50. It doesn't matter if I need to pay you a page rate. I just want to work with you. What can that look like? And if you're open and honest like that, you're going to find people who are willing to work with you. You also have to get really good at writing comic books. Like, you have to be better because they get those emails all day, every day. They're looking at stuff that stinks. So if you get good at it and you're nice, someone will say yes to you. And I learned that by emailing people who were working for Marvel and DC, and they said yes to working on stuff. A lot of it didn't come to fruition, but Oleg Ognov, which is a friend of mine, he's done a few things for Marvel. He did an A-Force book. I reached out and, like, this is a professional. I had never published a comic book before in my life. And he said, oh, I like the script. I'll work on something with you. And when I realized that a professional who's doing it the way that I want to be doing it was willing to answer my email and say yes and take a page rate, I'm like, well, then anybody will be. So that's what I do. I just email people and ask and give them a good script that they want to draw, like stuff that I know that they're interested in. And usually they say yes. A lot of people still say no. And it's a battle of attrition. You gotta just keep going until you find somebody. So if you're okay with that, if you have that sales mentality of, oh, a lot of people are going to say no, it's okay, someone will say yes. If you can do that, then you can find a creative part.
That sounds exactly like how I started this podcast when we started doing interviews. Just emailing people, and then you're like, wait, Colin Bunn said yes? We got to figure out how to interview people, guys.
Yeah, let's do it now. Like, that's what happened on The Digger. Is I love Sam's work. Sam was like one of the biggest indie artists in Russia. Like, he has done like every indie book over there. He was killing it, and then he was jumping to Spain. And I'm like, this dude's gonna be huge in a few years. I want to work with him. And so I reached out to him, and he was like, I hate all of these pitches. These suck. I don't want to work with that. And I go, oh, okay, I'm so sorry. I'm gonna go home now. And he said, no, pitch me something else. And I remembered Robert Kirkman's advice off panel from a decade ago, saying, well, I just ask an artist what they want to draw, and I write that. I'm like, well, I can do that. So I asked him what he wanted to draw. He said Mesoamerican, pulpy, like something like Indiana Jones. I'm like, well, I can do that. So I said, I definitely have that pitch. I lied. I went home. I wrote 10 pitches that matched that better. And he said yes. It's as simple as that. I think some people overthink it or think that that's not possible, or they really want their dream to be the thing. But you just have to talk to people. You'd be surprised how many people will respond to an email.
Do you think too many new creators get bogged down on their "this is my sci-fi epic and I will not budge on it" mentality, and that's kind of the issue?
1,000%, man. You know how many NDAs I've signed for people? I'm like, what? An ND? No one cares that you're creating this. I could post this right now to 2,000 people because I don't have many followers. I have like 2,000 followers. I could post it to 2,000 people and no one. I will get one thumbs up, maybe. It does not matter. You can have the best idea in the world, the best script, best comic book. No one gives a crap because we're not James Tynion. You know, like that's just like that's how it works. And so they get caught up in this idea. I think a lot of people who haven't been creative that long or haven't been working in that space view the idea as such a commodity. Like, this is the one thing I have. And you feel that way when you've only had one idea. But once you start doing it professionally and you have to come up with thousands of ideas, you go, oh, this is not anything. It's all in the execution. And even the execution, people might not care about. So you learn that it's Fugazi, right? Like, it just does not matter. It's ethereal. But until you've done it that long and have had some wins, had some losses, you don't learn that it doesn't matter. But yeah, man, people are really precious with it. Like, again, the NDA thing I think is hilarious. Like, you don't work for Apple. No one cares. I promise you it's okay. This release schedule is not going to make or break this book.
Most NDA thing I think I've ever gotten was like, this is between us, right? yeah, we're good. We're good. You feel to me like the type, and I've interviewed quite a few of these types and like mainstream, where you have a book somewhere that has 1,000 pitches in it.
Oh yeah.
Are you like constantly just brainstorming? You're like, oh, this is a cool idea. It's Pokemon meets Mario or whatever, and you just have like these pitches written out where like when the day comes, I can just slide these books in front of somebody and they'll find something.
Dude, 1,000%. I do that all day. And then what happens is I'll hand it to an artist and I go, listen, you said you wanted to draw mechs. Here are my 7 mech ideas. And they go, these all suck. And I go, you're right. And I go home and write 7 more. And then like eventually maybe they'll find a yes. And that's how it works for fans. That's how it works for publishers. That's how it works for editors, artists, letterers, everybody across the board. Have enough ideas so when they say no, but you can jump in with something else, because when you're in the room, usually you're selling yourself. You're trying to get them to like you. And I talk about it all the time. Invader Comics said no to Tokyo Fire, which was my big break comic book, right? They said no to that. That wasn't for them. It wasn't a bad book. It was a good idea for other people, but it wasn't for them. So I had to pitch them something else. So you need to be able to have other ideas. So I write everything down and I train my brain to work in those pitches, to come up with those ideas. Again, they're nothing. That idea is 4 bullet points that sounded good. The Digger is, what if Indiana Jones hunted Short Round? That's nothing. That's even, not even nothing. That's a bad idea. And it can be made into a good comic book if you're given the chance with it. So just train yourself to come up with more ideas, because they're not precious. They will keep coming to you. Everybody has an idea, which means that you can keep doing it. So I have the books filled with them. I have finished comic books on hard drives, finished scripts. I have stuff that may never see the light of the day. I have stuff that I'm pitching to publishers that I had written, pitched, drawn years ago that are just now seeing some yeses from publishers being willing to check it out, because I finally have done this long enough. So I have so much stuff just sitting, man. Like that's the fun part of the job, is coming up with ideas.
So I guess it's a good time to kind of move into why you're really here, which is to pitch this new book you got going on. I guess to start, you mentioned the new book's coming out from Invader Comics. You mentioned that you know the Tokyo book wasn't for them. What did they tell you an Invader book was?
Man, so they didn't tell me anything, really. They started posting on TikTok saying, hey, we have open submissions. And my fans said, hey, listen, you should be pitching this book. I had pitched The Digger just on TikTok. You should be pitching this to Invader Comics. And I had heard of Invader. I had pitched them Tokyo Fire a few years before. But I had picked up a Josh Rubin's book. Josh Rubin, the director of Werewolf Within, Hard Eyes, a really great comedian. He had written this graphic novel called Darla. And I'm a big fan of him, so I really wanted this graphic novel. And I saw that it was Invader. I was like, oh, I've heard of these guys, and maybe they like horror stuff. And when I did reach out and I pitched, they said, we like good comic books. We like good comic books from people that haven't had the chance to do good comic books anywhere else. So what they were looking for was something that isn't anywhere else, including you. So the only thing I could say that is an Invader book, if you want to join the invasion, is bring them something that people haven't seen before, and be a person that they haven't seen before. Because that was what they were looking for. They were looking for new talent, which is not a thing that most publishers are looking for. They're usually looking for the opposite. And they've gotten some really good talent through that way, of people who just haven't had chances elsewhere, or didn't respond in time from other stuff. Invader got back to me within a day. They liked the pitch. They want to publish the book. Let's do this. Like on a Sunday or on a Friday, I pitched the book, and on Monday I had a publishing deal. And I don't know many other publishers who would be willing to do that. So they're looking for new stuff. That's the only thing I can say, because their breadth of comics is so wide. They got everything from horror to cyberpunk to superhero stuff, comedy books, like just flat out weird gonzo stuff. I don't think that they have a lane, you know? They just want to put out new stuff.
So the Tokyo thing was probably a situation of like, we already have a book like this.
I think so. I think it's like they were putting out a comedy book and a cyberpunk book that same year that I pitched it. Plus, when I pitched it, I had 7 pages, which is enough. Like if you go to Dark Horse or Image Comics website, if you look at their open submissions, this is what I was basing it on. I didn't know how to do anything else. It said, hey, we need a few sample pages, a finished cover, and a team already put together. I'm like, I can do that. And I had 100 of those. And you find out that that's not enough if you never put out a major book. If you're Cullen Bunn, if you're Hickman, you can pitch them 7 pages in a cover. If you're T.S. Luther, who no one's ever heard of and doesn't care about, you need several issues finished. You need to prove that you're going to be able to deliver this, because they don't believe in you. And in fact, they're pretty sure that you can't do it, because you seem kind of like a used car salesman on TikTok. So like, you need to prove them wrong and bring them a finished book. And so I think that was more of the issue with Tokyo Fire. And then also, they had lots of books that were doing the same thing.
Yeah. So what is The Digger? We've kind of beat around the bush a little bit with this book, but other than your short pitch, what's this book all about?
Okay, so obviously the short pitch is what if Indiana Jones hunted Short Round, but really what The Digger is, it's this cat and mouse thriller. There's a young guide who's trying to get money to pay for his grandmother's operation. Very tropey in that way, where it's like his grandma's sick, he's in the middle of this small village in Mexico. It's like, what do I do to save my grandma? I don't have any options here. And this Indiana Jones, this gruff American walks into town looking for a guide. And everyone's staying away from him. Everyone's giving him a wide berth. And the kid doesn't know better, doesn't know why. The American's money is good. He's looking for the Olmec ruins. I know where they're at. I've guided people there before. I can do this. And it turns out the reason why people are keeping their distance from the digger is because he's a bad guy. He's a violent man. So you have this young kid on this adventure with Indiana Jones if he had, psychopathic tendencies. And you follow that adventure from there. And it gets scarier and scarier as it goes. And the original pitch was, what if Indiana Jones hunted short round? But the real idea was, hey, I'm a middle-aged white dude. What rights do I have to tell this story in Mexico? What's my in? Like, what if we talked about how academia is the bad guy? Like, it belongs in a museum really was, it belongs in a white museum where people that look like me can go and see it. And so if you approach it from the we're grave robbers, we're thieves element, the bad guy is Indiana Jones. And that allowed me to tell this story in a way that I felt comfortable. So that was kind of the broad pitch. I did a lot of research on the area, talked to museums, talked to people that were from there. How do I represent this well? And how do I do this in a fun way while also maybe, having people eat their vegetables secretly too,
So what is that research like when you call up the museum? I'm assuming you have a friend, but we're going to, for my question, you call them, cold call. I'm like, hey, I want to talk about how evil you are at a comic book. Like, how does that conversation go?
So first off, that is what you say, and they hang up because they're a white museum. What you do is you look up museums from those places where those items should be on display. If it belongs in a museum, maybe it should belong in a Mexican museum, right? If that's where you got this artifact from, that's those people's thing, right? Like you're taking it from one place and you're putting it in somewhere else, and that's thievery. That's all that is. So I talked to museums and I looked up museums that were from Mexico, from Veracruz, from all these places that actually had the first-hand information from long ago and represented it in a way that's like, if you go to most museums here, like where I'm in Michigan, it's a lot of this is exotic and it's there to show that these things are different, and you get a very different element if you go to these places where these artifacts are from and should be displayed. And so you get better information, you get first-hand stuff, and you get it that's not whitewashed and not through this really weird academic lens as well. So that's more where I focused on. But they do mostly hang up on you when you go, hey, you guys stole a bunch of stuff in the in the 30s. Can I see it, please? But there still is a lot of that here, and I still looked up there. And almost everybody was very, very kind. That information is broadly available on the internet, too. You don't have, if you're nervous about talking to people, you can go and find that stuff. You can do your research. You can do the work if you want to. And the other thing I did was talk to a lot of my friends who have Mexican heritage and said, hey, is this bad? Did I do a good job here? Is any of this representation to you offensive? Is any of it just poorly done? Like, what do you like about this? What don't you like about this? And I don't know if the book will be for everybody, but I did enough of that type of research for me to feel comfortable putting out this book, and for a publisher to publish it. So that's mostly what you do. Just talk to people that don't look like you, and you're going to get the good answers.
Did you ever have a point when you were doing all that where you maybe not verbally pushed back, but like in your heart, you're like, they told you like this, you can't do this. And you're just like, no, it's so important to my story. Or did you ever have kind of that internal struggle of, hey, they're telling me this is wrong, but like, I feel this is important?
No. If they tell you that it's wrong, believe them. Like, again, like I come from the Midwest. Like, what do I know about anything other than putting mayonnaise in way too much stuff? So if they told me that it was wrong, I don't do it that way. That didn't happen on this book. I think I did enough of my homework. And also, a lot of the pushback was the opposite. It was like, hey, don't worry about that. You're stressing about this. We just want to not be caricatures. We want to know that you did some of the homework. Like, who cares what the police uniforms looked like in 1930s Veracruz, Mexico? Okay, I'm not going to be offended if you get that wrong. You got to stop doing that kind of homework. Do homework on this. And it was more about just treating people like humans a lot, which is what you don't see in a lot of that fiction that I'm parodying and you know, kind of sending up. If you look at a lot of that pulpy adventure stuff, anybody that wasn't from America was put through such a terrible light, and that's what I tried to avoid. So if anything, it was the opposite. It was like, hey, don't stress about this silly stuff. We just want to be represented well. So that was mostly what it is. If somebody who doesn't look like me sees a character that looks like them in my book and I do a bad job, I change it.
So worry less about historical accuracy and worry more about making people.
Right.
Yeah. That's, I mean, it sounds like you put a lot into the book, and it's really cool. Have they told you when it's going to be hitting comic shops, or when it's going to hit the catalog?
I still don't know when it's going to hit the catalog. It was supposed to be in October. Lunars does their FOC a little bit differently, so the FOC is November 17th. I know that. So if you're interested in it, go to your comic book shop now and tell them that you're interested in it. You know, say, hey, say that you want the Digger, that weird Indiana Jones book from Invader Comics. It's in the back of the Lunar catalog. You can say that all right now. Eventually it will be in that catalog this month, from what I've been told. Issue 1 should hit comic book shops in January. It won't if you don't tell your comic book shop that you want it. I am not a known commodity. I don't think a lot of shops are going to cold buy it. But it should hit shops in January, and then the following month for issue 2, etc. So it should be close to monthly, if not bi-monthly, I think, after January for issue 1.
Okay. And where does the name The Digger come from?
I mean, I was just trying to find something ominous. I did a bunch of pitches for Sam. When he said, I want something Mesoamerican, I want something pulpy, I had a couple of different things, and I wrote this short paragraph that was the pitch for the Digger that was like, oh, like, if Indiana Jones was bad, what do they talk about him? And it's like, well, they would call him El Excavador. And that was one of my notes, was like, well, don't do the classic, well, like, some people are speaking Spanish, just have people talking. So I got rid of a lot of the Spanish stuff, but El Excavador is the Digger. And I was like, that's a really good, scary name. That's like, well, this dude doesn't have a name. His name in the books is John Smith. His name doesn't matter. He is the Digger. And if it's just this guy that shows up with a shovel who hurts people and steals stuff, like, well, that's as good a name as Eder, you know?
How is the story told? Is it told through the perspective of John Smith, or are we seeing him more as a folk lore through the eyes of the locals?
I think it goes back and forth, you know, it oscillates, but for the most part, it's from the eyes of the boy. Like, we see his naivety, we see him on this mission, we see a lot of his point of view, and then we cut away to show him how wrong he is, potentially, about the Digger. And maybe, you don't know where it goes, maybe eventually how right he is about the Digger. And so, like, a lot of what it is the classic horror setup, where you see the innocent scene, and then you see what the characters don't see, and you see how actually so that's mostly what we go through it. But it's an Indiana Jones book. It is a classic pulp adventure. They have the scene where they meet up, they go on an adventure, and they find, you know, the hidden stuff buried deep. So if you've seen anything like that, just imagine if it was a little bit scary and you were afraid for Short Round the entire time.
So at some point I'm going to see a Nazi get his face melted off.
I mean, I think that's a guarantee in any T.S. Luther book. You know, I don't mess with Nazis. I have 2 rules. Like, I'll write for anybody except for bigots and fascists. So, like, I would love to kill more Nazis. I don't put a ton of them in my books because I don't like making my artists draw them. Because, like, I was talking to a friend of mine, I had written a different story. It was along those lines, you know, think G.I. Robot. And the artist was like, dude, this is awesome. I love this idea, but I don't want to have to Google Nazi paraphernalia all day. Like, please don't make me do that. Like, I gotta look up the reference material. Like, you know, like, I have to Google that stuff. And I'm like, that's fair. I think of, like, the Mortal Kombat team who has to Google all those horrific things to make it look cool when, you know, Homelander punches somebody through the chest. And I'm like, yeah, I do feel bad for that artist. So, again, listen to your artists. So that's why you probably won't see that as much in some of my books, because I don't want to make an artist have to Google.
I was just having a conversation actually at the comic shop yesterday as we're recording this, and we walked in and the owner's watching some old James Bond movies. Love me some old James Bond movies.
Heck yeah.
And we were talking about how it's such a simple, like, I understand it's such a simple story mechanic, but as somebody wants to turn his brain off once in a while and just, like, see something, it was nice back in the day when you had Nazis and Russians easy villains.
Bad
Guy
guys.
shows up with a Russian or German accent, you know he's the bad guy. Like,
I mean, the part of it is like the rise of the right wing in our country too, where the people go, well, there's good people on both sides, and you go, no, I disagree, but people still sell stories, so they have to, they have to make it more nuanced, and I like a nuanced bad guy. I don't love it with Nazis. So I don't need a nuanced Nazi. That's not what I want necessarily in my storytelling. So it is frustrating there. But there's still so many stories that are doing that, who are very obvious and who have very clear lines where they don't have to spell it out as the author to say, well, I don't believe in this. But media literacy has gone down in recent years, so sometimes they have to be a little bit more obvious. See Peacemaker or whatever. You can't just go, well, that this stuff is bad. Sometimes your reader clearly does not know that stuff is bad, so sometimes you have to be a little bit more honest and a little bit more straightforward, going, hey, just in case you were wondering, I think Nazis are bad. In case you were confused because I put a Nazi in this book and they died, I wasn't sad about the Nazi dying. And that.
Well, I think, too, back during the Cold War, I mean, politics aside, whatever you feel, I think we can all agree that the Russians were great, but you're growing up in a culture where you're fearful of Russians. So when you see media and you hear Russian accent, you're like, bad guy. And we don't have that as much right now without it being, on an edge
very charged.
In some way.
Yeah, very charged in some way where it becomes violent and maybe unsafe for you to go, oh, I see that person as a bad guy, and you look over and people see you and go, I don't. That is a very true thing when it comes to a lot of our media. But that does give you room to play, right? The fact that you could put someone on there, people might see more nuance in a bad guy. And like I said, while there are some nuances that I don't need to dive into, I do like a nuanced bad guy. I like the bad guy who might be a little bit right, might be going about it the bad way. And I want you to feel a little bit for the digger as you read this book. I want you to go, oh, okay, what's he doing here? Maybe I do care about this character. You won't by the end, but I want you to at least at certain points care about these characters, even if it's just to make you go, oh man, he's bad.
Yeah, I like that too. I mean, you want some nuance in all your characters and everything. I just think once in a while, like you said, there's certain characters we don't want nuance from. I don't need nuance from Red Skull. He's the bad guy. No, don't. I do not feel bad for him. It doesn't matter if his mom beat him. I don't feel bad for him. Yeah, but Magneto.
Yeah. Magneto's one of the best bad guys, but sometimes you just need some fodder. Sometimes you just need people that you don't feel bad about seeing because you want to see Captain America be able to beat somebody up. It's the video game syndrome, right? Where we're fighting a lot of cyborgs because we don't want you to feel bad about killing the cyborgs. We don't want you to feel bad about fighting the nameless robots. So that's who you're fighting in this game. I think about the new Wolverine trailer. People were surprised that some of the guys he was fighting was robots. I'm like, you're to fight a lot of robots because at the end of the game they don't want you to see 1,000 dead bodies on the screen, and if you do that, they want you to go, oh, maybe those are robots. We still have to sell this to people and their children sometimes, so there's room for the nameless stuff.
You and I grew up on the X-Men animated series. I remember more as an adult. As a kid, you're kind of like, this is really cool, but then when you rewatch as an adult, the DVDs come out and you're like, man, Wolverine, every scene, he pops his claws. And then he has to put them back because you can't be stabbing people. I mean, it's the same thing with... So they had to have Sentinels.
Exactly, man, so he could cut something up. Spider-Man was the same way. I don't know, do you remember the 90s Spider-Man cartoon?
Yeah.
Do you remember how many punches he threw in that series?
Not many.
Zero. Spider-Man tackles a ton of people, though. Man, he's giving bear hugs, and he's wrestling people to the ground. Doesn't punch a single bad guy. Meanwhile, Batman's got guns flying everywhere. But that's the way that it has to be. And so sometimes you need that fodder that you don't feel bad about. And I completely understand that aspect. And it's the D&D thing, right? I forget what they're called, but the one hit point, you just throw them out there so you can have a bunch of fun people to take out for your guys that you don't have to worry about going, oh man,
it's the meme of the guy punching the little crabs.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You need the 1,000 giant rats for them to go fight to level up before they go and fight the sun god in Skyrim.
So I think a great like final question before we really wrap everything up. Like, how's working with Invader been as a whole? Like, in your career and where you've gone, like, enjoyed your time with Invader and what they've done for you so far?
I mean, so far, yeah. I mean, obviously, they're a smaller outfit, which means they can't do as much as if, like, I was working for Image or something, right? But because they're a smaller outfit, they care about my book. They gave me a chance when nobody else would, and they care about the book. They need it to succeed, so they care about getting it done right. There's been some growing pains because I signed with them, like, the day Diamond was basically dying. And so that means that we've had to deal with maybe we're going to lose distribution. Maybe Invader won't be able to get it into as many shops. All of that stuff. Into them signing with Lunar in the massive indie section and like doing really well. So now they're going through growing pains of like, hey, we're actually doing some successful stuff here. And so it's been a roller coaster of all of that and a learning experience for all of us. But the first thing I said to them when they said, "Yep, you're in," like, well, here's the contract for issue 1, because that's how it worked. Like, we signed the contract for issue 1, and I was really nervous, and I had reached out to Mike Perkins, who's the guy over at Invader, and I was like, "Hey, just off the record, I just want to say, like, I know that the book needs to sell well for us to do issues 2, 3, and 4, but I know that you need issues 2, 3, and 4, so me and Sam need to work on it, because if issue 1 goes well, you want to put out 2, 3, and 4 right away." So can you tell me what kind of sales I need to get, the book finished? And he was so sweet. He called me and was like, "Hey, we're putting out issues 2, 3, and 4. We're signing the contract for 1 right now because that's what we're doing. But no matter what, we're putting out your comic book. We believe in it. We're excited for it." And that says everything I need to know about. I'm almost crying about Invader Comics. The fact that they plucked me out of obscurity and were like, "Yeah, we like T.S. Luther books. We want to work with you." So honestly, they could light my house on fire and I would still sing their praises in this interview.
I believe this was said in public, but I don't think Mike would mind me saying this if it was private. I remember him telling me that they don't want to see comics at like most of the medium does. And this is a fault of us as consumers, as the industry as a whole, just the way things work. But they don't want to see things as, oh, issues 1, 2, 3, 4 have to sell X to be successful, and then we throw it away. They want to be able to sell books like The Digger for 5, 6, 20, 30 years. Like they think this is something that any book they put out should be able to be available for as long as possible so that people can get it. Because as I believe his example was, most people who have read The Watchmen don't own issues 1 through 9 of The Watchmen. They have a trade of The Watchmen they got decades after. And I think when he told me that was one of the things that stuck with me, is like what we talk about in the show with Mad Cave all the time, they want to be similar where they want to put out quality. And I think that's huge for them. And I love that they're kind of pushing that with you guys too, to be like, don't be afraid to just make, because we think this is going to be great. So
they didn't even want to see the scripts. And when they did finally want to see the scripts, Mike was like, "No, I'm excited. I liked issue 1. I want to see what happens in issue 2. I don't care. Like, do your thing." Like, he was not afraid about what I was going to put in it. He wasn't worried about that stuff. He was just excited. And they're still excited about it. And they're doing their best to make sure that I can stay excited about it and put out a good book, and that me and Sam are able to pump it up and tell people about it. And that's why I will always pimp Invader Comics. I will always tell people to get it. Not just my book, but all the stuff that they're putting out right now. Because they're awesome, and they care about comic books in that way. So I tell everybody to pitch to Invader. You might not get in, they might not want the book, maybe it's not right for them or whatever, but you should be pitching there. Partly because I don't know who else is going to give a lot of us indie guys a chance. Image Comics doesn't need us, right? Even Mad Cave used to be the one where I tell people, or Black Mask, and they've now grown to the point where they're still awesome and they're reaching out to indie creators, but they don't need indie creators. In Invader Comics, they still need us. They want us. This is their lane. This is where they want to exist. They want to put out new stuff from new people, and I love that so much that they want to give chances like that. So I will always tell people to pitch there. I love working with them, and the fact that they came to me and were like, "Hey, don't worry, we're going to put out issues 2, 3, and 4. Don't stress about that." I stress about everything in indie comics. Nothing is a given. I might never get a chance to write another comic book, but I got to write 4 issues of The Digger that are going to see comic book shelves. And I don't know if I'll ever get that chance again, and that's all because of Invader.
See, you said earlier you guys are up to issue 3 in terms of the creation.
Yeah, issue 3 is being colored as I talk about this right now, and issue 4 will be drawn next month, and finished up. But it's just 4 issues. It's finished up, and then it'll go to trade, and it's one single story. You don't have to stress about unless it sells really well, and then Invader's able to sell the movie rights. Then you'll get the Digger Returns in 2027 with 47 variant covers and the action figure on its way. But for now, it's just 4 issues and then the trade. Listen, man, I gotta be honest.
When you get the returns, you gotta get that Scotty Young.
Oh my god, Scotty Young is one of my favorite artists of all time. I modeled my career off him and Robert Kirkman, but I can't draw as well as Scotty Young. So so it had to be a little bit different. But I love everything he does. If I got a cover by Scotty Young, then maybe I could retire. Maybe I could call it there, because it'll never be anything like that ever again. So if you see that happen, just know that I don't care nearly as much about the next comic book. It's going to be a little bit of me phoning it.
So it sounds like, everybody, if you sign on for the Digger, you can be guaranteed that you're going to get the 4 issues, on time, on schedule. If they're that far ahead, this is what we yell at Jim Lee to do all the time: get ahead, and then you won't be behind by months.
To be fair, Jim Lee's got a lot of stuff going on. I don't
solicit Hush 2. That's all I'm saying, man.
I mean,
just don't do it.
Even if say you did get that Image deal, say you did get plucked out of obscurity, Image Comics isn't going to solicit your book till you have 3 issues ready to go in the can. It doesn't. You could be Jim Lee, you could be Hickman. You know what I mean? So they at least know. Back in the day when you looked at Exo Manowar or whatever, and they're 6 months ahead of it, that's hard to do because you're doing this on your own dime. But as an indie, I will say that it's a lot of pay to play. If you want to do this, you got to be prepared, because the second that Invader gave me the deal and they said we do want issues 2, 3, and 4, thank goodness me and Sam had an agreement and we understood and we're trying to do this, because if I had to pay out of pocket for 20 issues of a book or something because they needed a bunch ready to go, I wouldn't have been able to do it. I'm not liquid. You can see my room that I have here, this is not the lap of luxury. I have kids. I wouldn't have been able to pay for a book to have 4 ahead of time and ready to go. It's an expensive endeavor, and then you got to hope that they sell. So, you have to be ready for success in that way. Be prepared if someone says yes, that there are strings attached.
Yes, definitely. So, one last time, quick pitch to people to go check out the Digger, and then any social media you want people to follow, or where they can find you online. What's your favorite spots? For
sure. The Digger, What If Indiana Jones Hunted Short Round? A dark twist on the phrase, it belongs in a museum. Follow a young boy who is a guide in 1930s Veracruz, Mexico, just trying to, make sure his grandma's okay and feed her, and he's got to team up with a very dangerous and violent Indiana Jones pulp treasure hunter as they go and find Olmec ruins. If anything like that sounds interesting, go and ask for it at your local comic book shop. Ask for The Digger by Invader Comics. Written by T.S. Luther, drawn by Sam Goodlin. We did everything else ourselves, so please go and check that out and ask for it now, so it's in shops in January when you actually want it. You can find me at T.S. Luther across the board. All of the apps. I'm not on X because you know why. But I am on Blue Sky. I'm on Instagram. I'm on Facebook. I'm on TikTok especially. I'm on Reels. If you want to see all those dances, YouTube shorts, go and follow me over there. My website is can'tbekilledcreations.com. Links in all of the bios of all of those, social medias, and you can follow me on Substack. It's TS's Substack is what it is, and I update you every month on all of my cool stuff and some of my friends in the indie space on what they're doing. Somebody's always selling some sort of Kickstarter, so you can follow me there, and I'll tell you about the cool ones.
Definitely, and everybody watching, listening, check out the show notes down below. I'll have some of those links, including I'll try to find a link to the Digger so that you can show your local comic book shop. You can just shove the phone in their face and be like, here, get me this. Things like that, and also to all of TS's social media. So, man, it's been a pleasure talking to you.
Yeah,
I appreciate you taking the time today, and just best of luck with the book moving forward.
Dude, I appreciate it so much. Thank you for having me. And again, if anybody bigger ever cancels and you need, backup again, I'm here, man. I'm always selling something. I got some book somewhere, and if nothing else, we can just talk about Bird King Volume 3 hopefully next time that I read while I was waiting for you.